You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 554, Tinker Tenor Doctor Spy.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Mike Richards, sitting in for Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we examine Star Trek one episode at a time and daydream about what it must be like to pick it apart for the morals, meanings, and messages, trying to see if the whole thing stands the test of time.
This week, Tinker Tailor Doctor Spy, the one where the EMH expands the programming, proving that a doctor who operates on himself has a patak for a patient. I'll be right back with trivia, but first, Mike, welcome to the show. Norman is, of course, taking some personal time off, and while that's happening, we have been privileged to have some special guests in the co-pilot seat. I feel a little weird, actually, saying that you are in the co-pilot seat. I feel like we are equal pilots in this venture. Yeah.
Well, it's been a while since I've been in the literal co-pilot seat, but never
Right.
get too big for your britches.
There you
and
go.
I appreciate that you thinking of me as an equal. I kind of think of myself as a sort of a John Champion at best, maybe a poor man's John Champion, maybe a John Champion protege.
Wait, I thought I was the poor man's John
on my
Champion.
best day.
we can't
Okay,
both.
yeah. First time I heard your name, I thought that's a made up name. But aren't all names made up names?
They are. You know, it's very weird that I do kind of go through my life. Like, I hear that from time to time, like, oh, is that a stage name or whatever? I'm like, no, I can point you to so many other people in my family, not just with the same last name, but the same first name, too. Like,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
You know, not that rare. But, but that's my curse now for being in a kind of a public-ish job. But Mike, I feel like certainly everybody in the Mission Log audience knows who you are. And if they don't, I want you to please kindly remind them what you do for Roddenberry Podcasts.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I was so happy to see Norman back on the last few episodes covering Equinox Parts 1 and 2. Fantastic Season 5, Season 6 cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So great that Norman's back and doing well.
Indeed.
I co-host with Jessica Lynn Verdi, Mission Log The Orville, where, John, believe it or not, we look at every episode of The Orville, pick it apart for messages, morals, and meanings,
Wait,
and to see
what?
if that episode aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy.
I'm just going to guess, knowing what I know about the Orville, that it is indeed a show that stands up to that kind of scrutiny.
It does indeed,
Yeah.
and I have been having a blast. You approached me, gosh, I guess it's over 3 years ago at this point, to see if I was interested in doing that, and I had no idea what I was saying yes to, but I like to say yes to things. And it's been a blast,
Great.
getting to know you and Norman and Jessica and getting invited to Comic-Con and Star Trek Las Vegas and things like that has been amazing. So thank you, and that's what I do with Roddenberry Entertainment.
Honestly, here's what I love. As embedded in Star Trek as Roddenberry is, and then by extension, Roddenberry Podcast, I love that the same way that the Orville has its own life, separate from Star Trek, that Mission Log The Orville and you and Jessica have really finessed that and grown it into its own thing. And I love the relationship that you guys have with the production and how enthusiastic they are about what you do. That just makes me incredibly happy. So, well done.
It's been a blast, from Seth to David A. Goodman and Brandon Braga being on the show. We have had an amazing run. More recently, we had David A. Goodman back on the show. We've had Andre Bormanis, who'll be coming back to talk about the world of the Orville and the guide to the Orville. So we're just waiting on season 4, and it's been, as Tom Costantino told us, he was like, "You're part of the family now, man. There's no getting out."
Right. Excellent. Well, great job, and I look forward to more. And anybody listening to this who has not given it a look, please do go to podcast.roddenberry.com and check out Mission Log The Orville, where you will also find a spinoff show when you went into shore leave for a little time and covered Ted on Talking Ted. So, Mike, if you would please do the honors and let people know where to reach us.
Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. Find the show at missionlog@roddenberry.com and on X and Facebook at missionlogpod. While you're at it, a review and a rating at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform makes a big difference to the podcast you love. Always remember, your comments could be used on Mission Log or Mission Log Engage. And remember, the Roddenberry Industrial Complex will not be denied. And now here's John with this week's trivia.
All right, Tinker, Tailor, Doctor Spy, we have a story by Bill Vallely, and this is a new name for us, and he's just a one-time Star Trek contributor, but in addition to Bill having written a handful of comedies, he's very well known as an illustrator and cartoonist, and he's had his hands on the Marvel and DC franchises, as well as some of the smaller distributors. He's written books for kids, and he currently works in the gaming industry. Now, interestingly, he originally pitched this as a story about Neelix, and it was kind of a Secret Life of Walter Mitty story. By the way, if you need to look that up, watch the original one with Danny Kaye. Now we have a teleplay by Joe Menosky. Probably not a surprise there. His name crops up a lot, but he is the one who reshaped this episode into a story about the Doctor. And it was directed by John Bruno. Now, here's another interesting case of a newcomer for us, but someone with a non-traditional path to directing. John does have a handful of directing credits, notably the 1981 animated feature Heavy Metal, but he is most prolific in the areas of art direction and visual effects. And he actually got his start in the early 70s doing layouts and animation on features, Fritz the Cat, notoriously, and some animated series. And if you catch up with his later resume, it ranges from creating animated segments for networks all the way to effects for movies like Titanic, Kingsman, Batman Returns, and many, many more. And we will see him one more time in the director's chair on Voyager. Now, I'm sure that everybody recognizes the opera that the Doctor is singing in the teaser segment. That is, of course, from Verdi's opera Rigoletto, and the Doctor is singing that very recognizable La Donna Immobile, and that bit that is rewritten that he does now, that clever changing the words over to address what's going on with Tuvok, that could be credited to Joe Menosky, but Joe actually credits Robert Picardo as well for finessing some of those phrases. Now, we meet a handful of Overlooker aliens. Those are our guest stars of the week, and they are the ones who answer to the hierarchy. Now, in this episode, we have Devro. He's the second in command, and he's played by Robert Greenberg. He only had a few credits in front of the camera, like Cocktail and a recurring gig on Parker Lewis Can't Lose. He has shown up in horror movies too, his debut being in the 1986 cult classic Chopping Mall, with effects by friend of the show, Robert Short. The Overlooker is played by Googie Gress. Now, his birth name may be Francis, but he has gone by Googie since childhood. He got his start in New York in the early 80s and quickly racked up feature film appearances like The Flamingo Kid and later Wayne's World 2, Apollo 13, and Kingpin. He is still working almost nonstop, and if it's not on camera, it's as a voice actor. So far, this is Googie's only Trek credit. Phlox, now, hang on, dear listeners, don't get ahead of me in jumping the timeline. This Phlox is played by J.M. Leggett. Now, Jay had a strong background as a comedic actor and improv performer. He might be best known for appearing in Season 5 of In Living Color. E.R., Ally McBeal, and Drew Carey round out his guest roles, and he made some features like Employee of the Month. If you followed Improv Olympic out of Chicago, Jay was a part of the Armando Diaz Experience, which is, to this day, the longest-running long-form improv show in the U.S. Now, tragically, we lost Jay at the age of 50 in 2013.
Welcome to the Delta Quadrant, home of the space potato people who are watching your every move.
Prologue. In the mess hall, the Doctor is performing La Donna Immobile, bringing literal tears to the eyes of the crew. Even Tuvok, especially Tuvok, who has apparently been seized by the Pon farr. But it's okay. The Doctor distracts him with improv, receives a hypo spray from Tom, and subdues Tuvok, ultimately basking in the adoration of the crew. Now in sickbay, the Doctor is brought back to reality as he confesses to B'Elanna that he was just letting his mind wander. That's all. Act 1. B'Elanna has some bad news. The Doctor will not be joining the away team, although he was really looking forward to using his newly replicated holo-imager. On the bridge, Janeway and Chakotay discuss a T-class nebula. A T-class nebula? What is it? It's a cloud of hydrogen, helium, and argon, but that's not important right now. What is important is the Doctor's formal grievance filed to address his treatment by the crew. Also, he'd like to be made captain, just in case Janeway, Chakotay, Tuvok, Harry Kim, and Jenkins are all incapacitated. Meanwhile in the nebula, a ship controlled by the hierarchy lurks. Phlox, an observer, assesses Voyager for resources and vulnerabilities, sharing his findings with the Overlooker to determine if raiding Voyager is an acceptable risk. Not this time, Phlox. The hierarchy determined Voyager to be an unacceptable risk. Wait, that's not exactly true. Voyager has been deemed an acceptable risk. In the conference room, the senior staff plans the aforementioned away mission. B'Elanna plays footsie with the Doctor as 7 of 9 slides into his DMs. Now the captain wants a lower back massage for an old academy injury? As tensions rise, the Doctor is shaken from his daydream by Captain Janeway to discuss his formal grievance. You see, all he wants is to participate and advance as a member of the crew, according to his abilities. Note, please also see Harry Kim, Neelix, 130-odd other crew members, and the former members of the Equinox crew. Janeway informs the Doctor that expanding his program would take months, and well, you see, Voyager just doesn't have that kind of time. Undeterred, the Doctor wanders into a cargo bay just as Janeway unveils the new Emergency Command Hologram, or ECH. Seven and B'Elanna shower him with attention as all of this is being observed by Phlox on the hierarchy ship. Act 2. Phlox explains his understanding of the situation to the Overlooker. He can spy on Voyager through the emergency medical hologram, but the Doctor is more than just a hologram. He's an impressive individual, a physician, an engineer, a warrior, and very attractive to the females. Back on Voyager, the crew is monitoring the Delta Flyer on the away mission. Suddenly, the Flyer encounters a Borg ship. Chakotay, Tuvok, et al. Spontaneously assimilate as the ship takes fire from the Borg. Acting quickly, the Doctor activates the emergency command hologram. Armed with nothing more than photons, force fields, and hyposprays, the ECH subdues the assimilated crew and destroys the Borg ship with the photonic cannon. Looking on in amazement, the hierarchy plans a Type 3 stealth attack to avoid a direct conflict with Voyager, now commanded by the ECH. In a corridor, Chakotay congratulates the Doctor on his work with the Borg. However, Chakotay isn't in the corridor. He's in his quarters, as verified by the computer. Act 3. Realizing all is not well, the Doctor tells B'Elanna, Harry, and Seven that he experimented with his programming, creative cognitive projections. However, the program is malfunctioning, causing him to daydream uncontrollably. In engineering, they offer to help, just as an alert indicates the warp core is about to blow a lot sooner than you think. The Doctor springs into action as the gang is shocked to see him climbing into a perfectly good warp core. Now in sickbay, in a sort of holographic padded cell, the Doctor is rapidly cycling through daydreams, now with the bonus feature that they're being routed to the holodeck for all to see. We see the Doctor use art as a creative outlet, take command of Voyager, and be the bigger man by letting B'Elanna Torres down easy. Having seen enough, the crew gets to work isolating the algorithm, but before leaving the holodeck, Captain Janeway witnesses the Doctor in the cargo bay daydreaming about his promotion to ECH. Thank you for this opportunity, Captain. All I ever wanted was to live up to my full potential, to hone my skills, expand my abilities, and help the people I love. On the Hierarchy ship, Phlox realizes he hasn't been watching events on Voyager as seen by the Doctor. Rather, he's been watching the imaginings of the Doctor. Unable to admit his mistake to the Overlooker, Phlox ponders his next move. Act 4. In sickbay, the captain visits the Doctor who, thanks to B'Elanna, hasn't had a single flight of fancy. He's embarrassed, exposed, and humiliated. The captain is empathetic, knowing that daydreams help us imagine other possibilities in life. While she's not ready to hand over command to a computer program, she realizes the Doctor has potential, abilities which have never been considered. Alone with his thoughts, the Doctor finds himself daydreaming once more, though this time he's joined by Phlox, who explains his conundrum and pleads for help. After all, the Hierarchy does not tolerate mistakes. Besides, at this point, he feels like he knows the Doctor. The Doctor objects. "You've been spying on my fantasies, not me. You don't know me at all." Phlox replies, "But I do. I know how your mind works, what your hopes are. You created all these possibilities. I admire you. I don't want you to be harmed." Act 5. Janeway and Chakotay reluctantly believe the Doctor's story. Phlox's intel allows Voyager to detect 3 Hierarchy ships approaching. Phlox will provide the resonance frequency of the Hierarchy's phasers to counter the planned Type 3 stealth assault if, and it's a big if, the emergency command hologram, believed to be in command by the Hierarchy, is in the captain's chair. It looks like it's time for the Doctor to turn fantasy into reality. On the bridge, Phlox notifies the ECH that the Hierarchy has pivoted to a Type 4 assault, and he will not be able to help. Shots are fired, evasive maneuvers initiated, and posturing occurs. With no other option, the Doctor orders the use of the photonic cannon. He'd rather not use it. After all, death has little meaning to him. If it has none to the Hierarchy, then attack now. He grows annoyed at their foolishness. Reassessing the risk, the Hierarchy retreat as the Doctor breathes a well-deserved sigh of relief. In the mess hall, Captain Janeway presents the Doctor with the Starfleet Medal of Commendation, for real this time. She's also going to explore his command abilities. It seems he's a natural. The end.
Nicely done on the recap, Mike. You, of course, not a stranger to that, having done many for the Orville and Talking Ted, so I appreciate you turning your attention to Star Trek every now and then.
Thank you, sir. That was a lot of fun. I've been daydreaming about that for over a decade.
Nice, nice. And you worked in some really nice jokes, too, so well done. We kind of give it away early, of course, in the teaser segment. It is a fantasy. It is the daydream. But even in the daydream, the computer must be aware that everybody on the crew is just sort of like, they're over it. They're over the Doctor's like self-indulgent performances, and yeah, they kind of rally to help him out. But
it was funny in that opening scene. First, that opening scene where the Doctor gives the context of their place in the Milky Way.
Oh my God!
I was getting huge space battleship Yamato vibes because they have that monologue at the very beginning, just to sort of in this giant place. This is the tale of one very small planet. So that was great, but panning out among the audience, there were some looks of sincere admiration. There were tears brought to the eyes of some crew members, but Harry Kim looked like he wanted to be anywhere else.
But see, that's the ship's computer randomizing these daydreams, so it knows that Harry Kim is bored. But then what's fun is when the daydream takes a turn, and I mean, Tuvok's reaction to Ponfar is, wow. I mean, this is a great sequence. It's very kinetic, and weaving that into the music, it's just everything comes together very, very nicely. But I love the quick turn where everybody is just enraptured with the Doctor's abilities. Of course, they have to love him at that point.
Yes, 100%. 100%. We'll talk more later about his needs and how those needs are being fulfilled or not during the show.
Yeah. Now, I name-checked Rigoletto at the beginning. We talked a little bit about Verdi, just to give that a little bit of context. I did not say the name Jean Le Carre. So if you would like to fill us all in about our title here.
Oh, we're going to play the title game?
I think we should. I'm leaving that to you.
Okay. So, I looked this up the other day, and I know what a huge Sci-Fi fan you are, as well as many of our Mission Log listeners. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, a novel which came out in 1974 at the height of the Cold War, which tells the story of a kind of retired British spy coming out of retirement to meet the task at hand. Also a movie, also a TV series, and the basis for the title of this episode.
Yeah, very good. Well done. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the title game. I realize that this will become part of our deeper conversation in the next segment, but right away in Act 1, everybody is so dismissive of the Doctor's request. Like the very idea that he would put something down in a memo. And then Tom Paris even says, like, oh, he does it to himself.
Well, she did say rude behavior, and Tom sort of turned around at that point. It was not very many episodes ago, possibly The Disease, where they had some guests on the ship, where Tom is just telling hologram jokes.
Yeah, right.
To other people, and they're laughing in front of the Doctor. The Doctor has, again, we'll talk later about, but a legitimate grievance at just treatment by the crew.
Yeah. Then we finally meet our aliens and these kind of very interesting potato head shapes, reminiscent of the Sontarans from Doctor Who.
I see we both have that same note.
We do, good. Good. But it's interesting. They have all this technology. Like, they're not Pac-Leds, okay, but they have all this technology, but they just seem kind of simple-minded, right? Is that what we're supposed to get from them? Like, they just see a thing, they want it, they go get it.
So they kind of do. They're not empowered to make any kind of real decision. Are they part of the hierarchy? Is their organization called the hierarchy? Do they answer to the hierarchy? It was sort of the most existential type of aliens I've ever seen, where literally the first time I went and did the recap, I had the Overlooker and the Observer. As the two characters' name, which is kind of like Two-Lane Blacktop, where you have the mechanic, the driver, and GTO, or any other existential story where they just name the people what they are, not what they're called.
Yeah.
And I got this. So we don't need, I don't think, to know a lot about them other than that they're looking at the world through the Doctor's fantasies.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, I do like when we see that shot of their ship in the nebula, T-class nebula. Very good. Their ship, it kind of has this insect-like quality. It made me think of the 1980 Flash Gordon film, where the design was just all over the map, and I loved it.
It does. So what I'm starting to see now in this season of Voyager and late season 5 is a lot of sort of proto-Enterprise cues. 1159, they were in Portage Creek, Indiana. Right? That had very much a Carbon Creek vibe to it. This ship, which had two nacelles, those nacelles were connected to a strut with some sort of power source in between them, which was kind of reminiscent of the NX-01. So those kind of things. We're seeing that. I'm seeing sort of the genesis of
Genesis
Enterprise.
Forbidden. Yeah,
a lot of the shows.
Right. Now, well, we have the next fantasy scene that the Doctor has. I mean, the soft jazz music, the women fighting over him. By the way, look, I feel like if we're going to give Neelix weird Talaxian feet prosthetics, we should probably do that for B'Elanna. She should probably have some Klingon ridges or something. I don't know.
We should.
It's an interesting scene. It's played for comedy.
I mean, not as weird as Russian proverb, if shoe fits, wear it, guy.
He was the best.
But something.
Yeah. I think we'll also come back to this idea of the nature of the Doctor's fantasies and what needs are being fulfilled or not.
Yeah, I'll admit I was getting uncomfortable watching some of this, but how about B'Elanna doing the most B'Elanna thing ever, which is replicating a hollow imager for the Doctor and then not letting him use it?
I know. Oh my God, B'Elanna, please.
Oh, and by the way, when you're not doctoring, please shut yourself off. You're not worth the energy you consume.
It's totally insulting. And this line that Janeway has for him, she even says to him as he has these requests, they're not demands. She says, "I've given you a great deal of freedom on this ship." Like, what, is he a pet? No, he's a member of the crew, Yeah. The freedom is not to be given. The freedom is just understood, right? Because that's... And she says, "I hate for anybody to be uncomfortable on the ship." Do you? Yeah. Right. Yeah, that seems like a lie.
In the conference room. And I am all about letting my mind wander during a meeting.
It happens.
Just not like that.
Yeah, right.
Captain Janeway gets up, talks about her old academy injury, and then there's a cut right before the Doctor treats the old academy injury.
Right.
And it looked like that was a body double. I kind of hope for Kate Mulgrew's sake that was a body double, because that was one of those scenes that I was uncomfortable watching.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. There's a great line that's sort of, poking at the Doctor, but I love this idea that the aliens see him as he seems to be an expert on everything, which is great because it is purely from the Doctor's point of view. I love that bit. And of course, I love the giant holocamera prop. Still love that thing. And again, just insulting that the Doctor doesn't get to go and take this thing with him, but he has to give it to Neelix. Fine. Look, I'm going to have some comments about the way that the daydreams are handled, but there is something very comic book about how they're done. It obviously tips the hat every time you get into one of those sequences. Like, there's not a big surprise. There's not a big reveal like, oh, no, wait, is this real life? No, as soon as you run headlong into a daydream scene. But it is fun to kind of change up the pace where you're in one kind of scene and then boom, it just jumps to another, like panels on a comic book page. That's kind of cool and kind of fun to see the Voyager crew assimilated. I thought that was a good sequence.
That was a lot of fun too. So in other words, John, if you don't know whether the Doctor is an expert on everything, just ask him. Mm-hmm. So
he will let you know. Yeah,
he will certainly let you know. The holographic imager was fantastic. Again, the best toy that the Doctor never gets to use.
Right.
I think I have this in my notes elsewhere, but I like that you brought it up. The Doctor's choice of daydream. Yeah. So I do hear now that Voyager is, this episode's about 25 years old. Mm-hmm. The caretaker is approaching 30 years old.
Yeah.
And it often comes back to, well, that's just how the 90s were. Yeah. And as one of the few members that lived through the 90s and watched these episodes in real time, the Doctor is really more of a caricature of a 50 to 60-year-old man in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I would see his daydreams being more of a product of their upbringing, the 50s, the 1950s, the 1960s, something along those points of time. Because, that the jazz and the artist vibe and the long cigarette and the beret, that wasn't 90s. That was a flashback to more of a Pepe Le Pew type romantic fantasy.
Yep, absolutely agreed. I do like again, one of the giveaways that you're in a fantasy sequence, like the computer having this much more relaxed delivery, like in the engineering scene.
The warp core is going to blow a lot sooner than you think, John.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Nice to have Majel come in and, do a few lines like that. And I do like this sequence of the Doctor kind of jumping from one daydream to another. Like, you feel the sense of the computer just sort of losing control, going from one program to another.
Yeah, you sure do. The Phlox, when he was explaining to his boss, they're lost. Alone. I was waiting so long for him to say, they're lost. in space. It was right there. I was so disappointed when he said,
clear,
when
so
I said alone.
obvious.
And the Overlooker asks, why aren't you monitoring him now? Well, that's a good question. I will get back to you. That is a good question. Neelix asks the Doctor, do you daydream, Doctor? Doctor responds, no, but I lie like a rug. And I did love the effect when the ECH came online. The changing of the color of his uniform from blue to red, and the pips appearing on the collar was fantastic. And back to mention yet another space battleship, Yamato, the photonic cannon had to be based on the wave motion gun.
Oh, that was cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a great effect.
You only see the effect from the view screen of Voyager, but you can imagine this thing that is creating that. That was kind of awesome. Well, of course, the Doctor is painting Seven like one of his French girls, I guess.
Gotta scratch that creative itch, John.
Yeah. Funny, though, when they turn around and, of course, Janeway has her quip about, like, well, he's, good with the hands. But then you turn the camera around and you see that he's been doing this over and over and over again, like the computer got trapped in a feedback loop or something, I guess.
Or even maybe his moral programming only allowed him to go so far with the artwork, and then he had to start over.
That's a good point. I do feel like, at this point you are in the well of the show, and it's like, okay, these scenes are fun, but there's a lot of them, and it feels repetitive at a certain point.
Yeah, there was an episode of Season 3, The Orville New Horizons, called Mortality Paradox, which the crew kind of finds themselves in these different scenes that ultimately end in their death. And I won't say more than that because it is an excellent episode, an excellent hour of science fiction. But there were maybe one or two too many of those scenes. It came in about an hour and 20 minutes streaming, but I was getting that same vibe from this episode.
Yeah.
The Doctor did finally go ask for help after testing the waters with Neelix. Yeah. Do you daydream? Oh, we believe the dream finds the dreamer, Neelix says. Do you daydream? No, I don't. However, when things start to go more and more wrong, we find ourselves in that daydream montage, which, John, I think should be the name of our Monkeys cover band.
Oh my God, daydream montage. It was right there. So obvious. You got it.
Daydream montage. He finally does go and ask for help. And eventually, you do have to do those kind of things, probably sooner rather than later.
Yes. Yeah.
While he's trying to climb into the warp core, Seven says, deactivate his program. B'Elanna says, no. It will damage his matrix. Not like that. She said it however Roseanne says it. Roxanne says it. No, it'll damage his matrix. So what do you have to do, John, to deactivate the Doctor? You have to go to settings, general, shutdown every time?
Yeah, it's the whole thing. Yeah.
That's how it works? Okay, good. Because I thought they would just...
slide your finger across the screen. Yeah.
I just thought they would pull his hollow emitter off, his mobile emitter off of him.
See, that's something that I never understood, because there are times when it looks like a hollow emitter just pulls off, or you can just hit a button and a chip, but it seems like if you just reach out and try to grab it, well, you're also grabbing him. So,
right.
Maybe you need a remote control. Maybe that's what he needs.
And what kind of drama they're trying to build in the plot.
Yes, yeah. Now, can confirm, I do feel like the alien Phlox here, he is a bit of a peeping Tom, but also I guess he had no other way to do what he's doing, and he feels bad about it later on. Speaking of people who don't feel bad, again, Janeway, just constantly dismissive. I feel like that is going to be part of our deeper discussion.
Yeah, the peeping Tom issue and what the Doctor was pretending to be, it reminded me of a quote by Kurt Vonnegut, most famously known for his appearance in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yes, that is exactly how he is best known.
That is exactly, and he says, we are what we pretend to be. So EMH, please be careful about what we pretend to be.
Nice.
Janeway, I didn't even catch this in the recap because I didn't think much of it at the time. They're having the same conversation since the Ultimate Computer.
Yep.
Chakotay, are you comfortable handing over your command to a computer program? Huh.
Yep.
Maybe instead of reading Federation law, you could read some excerpts from those old scientists. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I did really like the conversation between the Observer and the Doctor when they finally met face to face. The Doctor, while limited in his role and how he's treated by the crew, can at least imagine a better life. Mm-hmm. He can at least imagine the possibilities. Just that ability alone is admired by Phlox, who admits that his people are different. Their thinking is confined. And he admires the Doctor for that ability to see the possibilities.
Yep. Nice.
And then finally, a couple of weeks ago, Chakotay runs onto the bridge like a madman, an absolute lunatic. Yeah. Everybody steps aside to let him do whatever he was doing at the end of the fight. But the Doctor walks onto the bridge, sane, composed, with a pad in his hand. Mm-hmm. Just such a different standard. John,
oh my
can you say carbon chauvinism?
Yes, that is spot on. Carbon chauvinism. Exactly. Interesting scenes as we wrap it up. The Doctor is nervous about doing this for real, but I feel like nerves are the kind of thing that you can turn off in a computer program, and he's been doing this all along. Like, he's already got the words in his head. He's already got that part of the program built in. And think about this. The Doctor has the advantage of being able to download and absorb, like, every tactical decision ever made by every captain. He could have a bit of Kirk in him, which maybe...
Bit of Pike.
Bit of
Saru.
Yeah, you can have all of that. Yeah.
Which I can't tell if we're jumping the timeline talking about Saru because it's in the past, but the show doesn't come out for another many years.
Yeah, well, something vague like that. We'll let it stand. Yeah. Shout out to the whoopee cushion. Well done again, Tom, our expert on 20th century culture and technology.
20th century expert.
Yes.
What do you call the male Mary Sue? Just call him a Robbie. Robert D.
Yeah. There you go. Again, that most of those scenes played for comedy, but in the reality of the show, I'm thinking, okay, well, the Doctor is actually better than he's letting on. He is a computer. He can repeat lines. So, if the captain's telling him what to do, he can just, boom, instant recall, get it exactly right.
I actually thought about working that into the recap a little bit or the intro, where you're telling me what to say and I'm repeating it. Since since I'm just sitting in,
right,
not actually here. So I did think that was funny, but those nerves, and again, I learned this from you, and we talk about it all the time. Mm-hmm. The aliens are us.
Yeah.
So
100%.
The Doctor is us.
Yep.
So you can train for something, but until you're doing it in anger, it's not the same. In my career, and I don't know how many mission log followers, Jessica outed me as an airline pilot, and at some point along the way during Mission Log the Orville, but we train in simulators. We train on computers. The first time we fly an airplane for an airline, not the first time we fly an airplane.
Right.
Go to the airlines with decades of experience.
Right.
But the first time I flew a 737, it was for the airline in revenue service with a plane full of passengers.
Yeah.
I practiced. I knew all the lines. I passed all the evaluations. I had somebody with me to mentor me. It's still nerve-inducing.
Really?
The Doctor had been through all of that in a sort of a simulation, if you will.
Right.
Now he's doing it for real. I get the nerves.
Interesting, yeah. It does seem kind of cruel, though, at the end to throw a surprise party for the Doctor, given all that he has been through.
I do like that Harry was like, don't worry, Doc, it's real this time. So at least they did that. Before that, though, I love that Janeway's first inclination when she was told that there was trouble brewing was to just nope out of there at maximum warp. She was like, let's just do that, and they're just like, oh no, you can't. We're gonna have to do this. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
When Janeway tells the Doctor, looks like it's time for fantasy to become reality, I was sure getting a glint of be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You may get it, courtesy of Uhura in Star Trek 3.
Right.
And John, I have a question for you. How is a Type 4 assault less risky than a Type 3 stealth assault? Where's the stealthy part? Shouldn't an attack be stealthy?
Anyway, exactly. Well, it's like one of those, anytime you hear them say, like, use attack pattern gamma, it's like, okay, that's the one where we turn to the left, keep shooting. I get, like, all right, fine. Whatever it is, these ships are just going to show up. Yeah.
And when ECH tells Tuvok to fire the photonic cannon.
Yeah.
Tuvok is like the worst improviser in improv class. He was like, firing.
Mm-hmm.
No, man, you got to get into it. You're firing the photonic cannon. That's a big deal.
He's not committed to the yes and of the scene, and that is not cool. Yeah.
Nope. And the Starfleet Medal of Commendation. Because that's a totally real thing.
Well, first of all, it's entirely too small to be the Medal of Commendation. And Harry Kim, like, you mentioned him a moment ago. It's like, yeah, Harry Kim says what's going on, but it's like, too bad, guy. You're the one who is not going to get this. Like, you've actually been in the captain's chair. You've had these moments of actual command for hours on end. You're not going to get the award. You're not going to get anything.
Which brings me back to the prologue and the reason why Harry Kim wanted to be anywhere else. I don't want to see the Doctor get more acceptance and accomplish more in front of this crew than I have with all of my hard work and all of his brilliance.
For all of the hologram programming skill that this crew possesses, maybe someone should look into giving the Doctor a firewall?
We'll get right back to Tinker, Tailor, Doctor Spy after a word from this week's sponsor, ExpressVPN.
All right, friends, let's talk about something important. Imagine going online without any protection at all. It's kind of like posting all of your passwords and credit card numbers on a giant billboard for the whole world to see. Now that sounds ludicrous and scary, right?
That is what happens when you connect to an unprotected network, like those public Wi-Fi hotspots in cafes, hotels, or airports. Your data is wide open for anyone to snatch. Hackers can get into your accounts, steal your personal information, your passwords, bank logins, even your credit card details. And trust me, it doesn't take a tech genius to do it. A hacker could be as young as 12 years old with just a cheap piece of hardware and a little know-how.
And that is exactly why I've been using ExpressVPN for a while now. Your personal data is valuable. In fact, hackers make up to $1,000 per person selling your information on the dark web. But ExpressVPN stops them in their tracks. It creates a super secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, making it nearly impossible for anyone to steal your data.
And you know what? ExpressVPN is so secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to crack its encryption. I don't know about you, I don't have that kind of time on my hands. It's way longer than it'll take for Voyager to get back to the Alpha Quadrant, let's put it that way.
Definitely, by many orders of magnitude. But it's not just about security. ExpressVPN is super easy to use, too. You fire up the app, you click one button, and boom, you are protected.
And that is why it is rated #1 by tech experts like CNET and The Verge.
Okay, I got a quick story for you. I was just on a family trip that took me around New England and into Canada and back, and I noticed that two things were happening. Well, one is that if I would dip into Canada, sometimes some of the sites that I would access didn't like the fact that I was in Canada, didn't like the fact that I was in another country. So I needed ExpressVPN in order to connect to crucial apps like banking and paying bills, that kind of thing. The other thing is, well, I was on a ship, so I was waiting until I got into port and had to use what? Public Wi-Fi. So definitely two birds with one stone, encrypting my connection and making it look like I was coming from the United States in order to do what I needed to do online.
ExpressVPN is peace of mind, and let's face it, we could all use a little more of that. So here's the deal, folks. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday Cyber Monday offer to get the best VPN deal of the year.
Yep, right now you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday Cyber Monday offer to get the absolute best VPN deal you will find all year. Use our special link, expressvpn.com/missionlog, to get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan or 6 extra months with the 24-month plan, totally free. That's expressvpn.com/missionlog to get an extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN for free.
Again, that's expressvpn.com/missionlog to get 4 or even 6 extra months of ExpressVPN for free. Don't miss out.
Trust us, your online security will thank you.
Hey, just a moment ago I mentioned that the EMH could download all the command tactics of every captain ever, right? I think he did get a little bit of Kirk.
I think he did.
I think he did, because I feel like that is a Corbomite maneuver throwback right there at the end with the photonic cannon, right?
There was nothing subtle about that, I don't think, John. They could have just called it the photonic cannon. They could have just called that the Corbomite device.
They could have. Yeah.
It was fun. I had fun folding that into the recap, and had fun watching the episode because of that.
However, Corbomite maneuver ends with this cultural exchange, and we're toasting to Tranya. This ends with nope, out of there.
Hey man, we're just trying to get home. You know, if we can pick up some more on an away mission at some point, or maybe talk about a T-class nebula, we'll do it. But other than that, this ship is going in one direction, and that's ahead.
Yeah, right. Let's get it a little bit here to the EMH, the Doctor's daydreams. And, we kind of teased about this. We hinted about it in the last couple of segments about what they are, what they indicate, what he's getting or not getting, and how this manifests. Yeah, look, there's a recurrent theme in the EMH's daydreams, as there is in his character overall, this self-aggrandizement and getting praise for his heroics and all that. So that indicates one thing, maybe about what he's not getting in his real life. He is a very capable doctor, clearly, but how many people say thank you when he's done?
Right. And there's been comments in this show. Chakotay said he's the doctor. He should just concentrate on that. The captain said his primary responsibility is to medicine. Tom said he's the chief medical officer. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't he be content with that? I mean, that is a high-ranking position.
Yeah.
However, if the doctor's needs are not being met, and I learned this way back in my early career as an airline pilot, it was a very simplified model of achievement needs, affiliation needs, and really in this we didn't even talk about the power needs, but they're there also. David McClellan was a psychiatrist, and he came up with this 3 needs theory. Affiliation, which is your need to be for relationships, to be accepted by your coworkers, by your family, by other people.
Right.
That connection with people. Achievement needs is kind of the need to get better at things, to achieve great things, to excel and succeed, and to improve upon yourself. And then the power needs is just simply, it's not megamaniacal, it's not narcissistic, it's just you want to make a difference.
Yeah.
You want to be able to help, you want to be able to affect the outcome of situations. And each of these fantasies folded all 3 of those needs. That's what I saw. I saw all of these needs being folded into the Doctor's fantasies by romantic relationships with the people on board, which is kind of clunky and somewhat cringeworthy, but I think that's what was going on, and people need love. Human beings need that connection, and the Doctor is us.
You know what? Okay, this is interesting because it is clunky. However, I think if you pull back a bit, what you see is, this is the Doctor's wildly adolescent fantasy, especially when it comes to Seven, of course, yes, and played out on 90s TV. You can very easily put that into context. But I do think that what's going on here is that so plainly illustrates, no pun intended, it so plainly illustrates the personal needs that are not being met by the Doctor in any sort of friendly, personal way. The guy literally is, he's got this mobile emitter now. How many times do we see him not in sickbay? He's always there. How many times have we seen him socializing? They actually did a pretty decent job at some point with 7 of 9, socializing with her, bringing her into the mess hall and just treating her like a person who is interesting anyway and who is now part of the crew anyway. The Doctor, they're still treating like a toaster.
And look at what B'Elanna said to him at the beginning. She said, Doctor, you really should turn yourself off when you're not in use.
Right.
It's costing us energy.
Right.
That is unconscionable. That is like, if I want to hear anything from you, I'll ask you.
Yeah. It truly is. Yeah. So here he is without getting the sort of professional recognition that he should get. Would you categorize that as achievement / power? Just
the
doing
personal
his job,
Yeah, affiliation needs I would describe as the relationships between the people.
Yeah, because the affiliation I think is super clear. Not only is he being dismissed by the people who should have his back, i.e. Chakotay, Janeway, etc., but then the affiliation also speaks to he doesn't have a friendly personal relationship with the crew. So it's going to play out in the fantasies in the most extreme way. It's like, no, they want me. And they want me in this sexualized way.
If we had, and I guess I'm putting my writer's hat on now, John, less of the romantic interlude and more of maybe going to Club Bromed with Tom and Harry, being one of the guys, as problematic as Club Bromed is, at least then it would have been more well-rounded fantasies that indicate that he just wants to be part of the crew.
Yeah. Well, and I do think the romantic fantasies can fit in there in some way. I really do.
They do.
But we just kind of play that over and over, and that's part of the, we'll get into that in the next segment, any part of the pacing that doesn't quite work. It's like, okay, when we dip into the fantasies, we're repeating the same themes over and over again. So you kind of feel like, okay, well, we've seen that one. We get it here. Yeah, I kind of look at all of that with the interpersonal and romantic relationship to think like, well, the guiding program behind the EMH, the thing that is either generating these daydreams or at least letting the daydreams emerge, if you want to call it some sort of assisted or artificial intelligence that is letting those things come out. It's doing that from an informed place. It's doing that from all the experiences that the Doctor has had. Go back to the scenes where he created a holographic family, seeking some sort of interpersonal relationship, seeking out some way to understand human emotions and human connection. What happens there? B'Elanna shows up and goes, well, this is stupid.
And you see this program develop over time. This is the person on their human journey.
Yeah.
On their human adventure. This is Spock learning to accept and see the strength that his human half brings him. This is Data trying to be more human. This is Zahn, who sadly never got his part fleshed out in Star Trek Phase 2, going on that human adventure. That's the Doctor. And we see them now trying to do those things, trying to become part of the crew, trying to better themselves from a technical standpoint, trying to hone their skills, to do more, to learn more things, and to affect change, to make a difference on the lives and to help the people that he loves, as he puts it so eloquently in his speech with Janeway in one of his fantasies.
But here is the big but to all of that. Okay, Spock has the benefit of his best friend being Captain Kirk. And Data has the benefit of, well, not his best friend, that's Geordi, but the support of a captain and a first officer and everybody else in that bridge crew who respects him. And it's not just that they respect him, but they are fascinated and enthralled by the idea that this manufactured intelligence can be their friend and can be incredibly capable at his job and can grow beyond his programming. And I kept thinking during this, Janeway, Chakotay, where were you when the Measure of a Man trial was going on? Because that's what you need to see. That's what, instead of dismissing him, we've been with the Doctor now for 5+ years. And and why in the world, when Cass was already making a plea to say, hey, he's a member of the crew. He's not just a machine. You need to treat him that way. And okay, you make these baby steps to get him that way. And then you realize, well, wait, we have to have him on all the time. And by doing that, just by the nature of the beast, his programming will expand. And we're encouraging him to expand his programming. So why in the world 5 years later now do you come back and go, oh, no, hey, we gave you the freedom, to exist. We gave you the freedom to, like, have these walls around you. Isn't that enough?
We gave you the freedom to shut yourself off.
Right? And do what we tell you. Yeah.
And I think that's right why we get this episode. If they had that best friend, that captain, that mentor, bringing them along on his human adventure, then there wouldn't be any need for him to program himself to have daydreams, for these cognitive projections, as he put, because he would be able to live those things out. He would feel free to go to the holodeck and paint, or to go to pursue a romantic relationship, or to develop leadership skills with the blessing of the crew. Since those things didn't happen in real life, he had no choice but to get them from wherever he could.
Yeah.
And where he got them from was a fantasy world.
By the way, all three of those things Data did. Painted,
right,
romantic relationship, and command.
Yes.
So, yeah. But we just, for some reason, this crew can't get past that with the Doctor.
And it just must be a paradigm shift from positronic circuits to photons and force fields. And we're having the same conversation again.
Emergency medical hologram. Emergency command hologram. What kind of emergency hologram do you need in your life? Tell us in the comments.
Well, we made it to the end. Your emergency podcasting holographic programs are here to give it the final assessment. As we do on Mission Log, we ask each other if the episode holds up. Does it stand the test of time? Again, purposely worded vaguely, so you can make your own assessment and tell me what criteria you're using to judge the episode. And then we will see if there's anything to take away, any morals, meanings, messages, what I like to call the heart of the story. So, Mike, does Tinker Tailor Doctor Spy hold up?
Oh, me? My mind was wandering just for a moment.
Just a little daydream there, yeah? Just a little fantasy sequence?
So I am actually surprised that I was able to get as much out of this episode as I did. And, we talked about some of the cringeworthy scenes in the episode, which, like I said, before people go hating on the 90s, they were even cringy in the 90s. Like we said, the Doctor is kind of more of a caricature of what a middle-aged man in the 1990s was like, meaning they were probably more of a product or of the 50s or 60s. And we see that attitude through his take on romantic relationships. We see that. So, we get the idea. We saw all too many of those during this episode. But the fact of the matter is that we're human beings, and the Doctor is us. And we have needs. We have the need to be accepted. We have the need to grow, and we have the need to make a difference in our own lives and the lives of the people that we love. And if we have to, we're going to go wherever we can to get those things. In the Doctor's case, he retreated into a fantasy world. The question I ask myself, John, when I'm preparing for an episode of Mission Log the Orville, is this. Did I get something of value in exchange for the time I spent consuming this content?
Oh, that's a good way to look at whether or not something holds up. I like that.
In this case, the answer is yes. And it all came down to the conversation between the Doctor at the very tail end of his daydream montage. When he told the Doctor, name check, when he told the Doctor, and it all came down to the tail end of the daydream montage when he said to Janeway, "Thank you for this opportunity, Captain. All I ever wanted was to live up to my full potential, to hone my skills, expand my abilities, and to help people I love." I'm actually getting a little choked up reading that.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
We should never stop imagining the possibilities, especially when it comes to reaching our full potential. And we should seize every opportunity, even though we all know opportunities come in different shapes and sizes based on our individual circumstances, to live our best lives, regardless of what that means. We should never stop imagining those possibilities and trying to move forward. That's why I think this episode holds up.
There's something really nice about that you point out, is that you can take an episode that is played mostly for comedy. I mean, look at our aliens. They're played for comedy as well. But you take somebody's talent like Bob Picardo, you take the talent of a writer like Joe Menosky, and everybody else who I'm sure that had their fingers on the script too. And when you can land a line like that really just gives it the emotional and very human punch that it needs, that's the kind of thing that I think elevates an episode like this. So oddly, this is going to be one of those shows that, for me, I feel like the heart, the moral meaning message, what's going on here, actually exceeds the quality of the episode. So right. I think as an episode, I think it's not one of Voyager's best, really. It's just, look, the joke wears thin. We get bogged down in the daydream sequences. Like I said, I think the pacing of the show, even though the individual sequences are well paced and they have that kind of comic book style, there's so much of it that it feels repetitive. I would kind of like to see this same story, the same idea, but given a little more serious take. Like, imagine that in a novel where you can take the time and you can really get into what is making the Doctor tick and what is driving these needs that are not being fulfilled, and what does it actually mean for his relationship with the rest of the crew, and how can we get the rest of the crew past their own prejudices about this valuable crew member. I think there's a way to do that Star Trek very effectively did with Data. Because after The Measure of a Man, we very rarely had to come back to a point where we had to remind anybody in the Enterprise, like, oh, no, this is a sentient being. And he is worthy of the same kind of interaction and respect and relationship that any other member of the crew would. So, in its defense, this is an episode where we are 6 seasons in. We love all these characters already. Not you, Tom. And if every episode can't be a hit, okay, well, sometimes you just got to take a little diversion and have some fun. That's fine. And that's how I feel about this episode. It's fine. There are a few trippy moments that are clever in execution, like the Doctor encountering Chakotay in the corridor, and the computer reporting that Chakotay's in his quarters. Okay, this is good stuff, but I feel like it is an episode that is executed very firmly in the time that it was produced. It just feels like a 90s show. It doesn't feel like the best of Star Trek. It doesn't feel like a way to show somebody, hey, this is Star Trek's values on display. Because that's what gets me to the morals, meanings, messages. All right.
Oh, that's a segue, my friend.
There you go. Now, look, there is one thing in here that's kind of fun that's really not necessarily front and center. It's not even that necessary to get into the episode. But you have this lesson in anthropological study, how bad these aliens are at what they do. Because the stories are only as true as the point of view from which they are told. And that's the conundrum they find themselves in. It's like, well, yeah, this is the truth because this is the story we're hearing and experiencing from this one character, this one member of the crew. But they haven't done the homework to give themselves any type of perspective on this at all.
And they never do anything to verify their assumptions. They see things.
Right.
Form a conclusion without doing the work.
Exactly. There's no perspective at all. And that's the kind of thing that, as hopefully a good skeptical thinker, drives me insane. Like, yes, you may have your gut reaction. You may have your immediate take on what's going on, but you owe it to yourself to step back, do a little research, and figure out, does the evidence actually lead to the conclusion that I have? Now, let's talk about the Voyager crew. And this is the important part, I think, about what's going on here. They're so dismissive of the Doctor until he gets them out of trouble. Like, oh, okay, he hasn't proved his worth so many times over, saving crew members' lives. He hasn't done that already. Now, finally, he saved the ship in a moment of heroics. Now you give him the medal. Why aren't they taking him seriously already after 5+ years with him? I refer you again to the message of The Measure of a Man, which was that the measure is not of Data's humanity. It's not us putting Data up to some scale and deciding, oh, well, he's that much worthy. He's that much human. Or in this case, the Doctor's humanity on trial. But it is, in fact, a measure of our own response when faced with someone or something new. How do we react? That is the measure that is on display here. Chakotay, you said it before in your notes. Chakotay says he should focus on what he was programmed for. And my question is, why? I mean, would he say that about any other member of the crew? Would the captain say that to anybody who shows a proficiency and an ability to learn far beyond what anybody else has done? So why wouldn't you take advantage of that, especially when you're stuck tens of thousands of light years from home with 140+ crew members, knowing that you may lose any of them at any time given the circumstances, and you may need somebody to step up and take on a new role. So I hope that the lesson here is that this command crew had a lesson that they should have learned a long time ago. Finally, hopefully, they're coming around to it because they've done exactly everything that was the opposite of the lessons that we got from The Measure of a Man. What about you, Mike?
Before I jump into mine, I wanted to speak to what you said. And I think a lot of that is lessons that are learned are ultimately forgotten. That's why doctors, airline pilots, teachers, most professions, if not all, have some sort of recurrent training. Because you learn things, and then over time you revert to the way you did things before that impactful lesson changed your behavior. The crew may have learned long ago that the Doctor is part of a crew. It sure seemed like they did. But that didn't stop them from taking him for granted at this point of the journey. And we take relationships for granted with people. We take equipment, reliability for granted. The Doctor can really be thought of as both of those things. And he was clearly being taken for granted by the time we found ourselves in the beginning of season 6. And I think that's why those lessons weren't learned. Maybe even if they were learned a long time ago, they had since been forgotten and needed to be reinforced at this point. My message to Janeway, before you're a leader, success is all about growing yourself. We call that personal leadership in my business. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. I modified that quote from Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric, who's big in the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
It's not about you anymore. It's about the people that you serve, and you're serving those people as their leader. A good leader, a good superhero doesn't show you their superpowers, John. They show you yours.
Bravo. Yeah.
The message for all of us is I bought a poster when I was out of college. Got it framed, got a glass, hung in my office for years. At some point, it got taken down and put away. And that poster, kind of in 1990s successories fashion, says vision, and it has a contrail of a jet, not a chemtrail, a contrail from a jet.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sort of with the moon and a sunset behind it. A moon and a kind of a purplish sky behind it. And it says, nothing happens unless first a dream. And that quote is attributed to Carl Sandburg, which not the other Carl.
The other Carl. Yeah.
The other Carl. Who, if you don't know, and I didn't, is an American poet, biographer, journalist, and editor. He won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 for poetry and 1 for a biography of Abraham Lincoln.
Whoa.
That poster that piece of artwork hung in my office, hung in my apartment, was in the back of my car when I was between apartments for decades. And at one point, it got put away. And I started to forget about it because as I progressed in my career, it got really easy to be complacent and be satisfied with where I was. And I was not taking the time to daydream, to think about the possibilities, to think about what I could be if I just put in a little extra effort and tried a little bit harder. And other people might look at me and say, well, he should be pretty happy where he is, right? Like Tom, he's the chief medical officer. Isn't that enough? Well, when I started in this business, I was lucky enough to pursue my goals, even though many people over many years told me it was a pipe dream. In an ideal world, we would all be free to pursue our goals and our dreams. And at the very least, we'd be free to work toward having our needs met without anybody telling us that we should be content where we are. And if you have a goal, if you have a dream, if your needs aren't being met, if you want to be in a better place, please, please imagine the possibilities and make those possibilities a reality. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Alice.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Rand Hurl, Tom Kozak, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shadwell, Paul Shadwell, and David Takechi. It's a good thing the potato people didn't accidentally tune into Captain Proton. It would have confused them even more than the Doctor's daydreams did. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.